Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michelle McCarthy-Behler, and I'm the Assistant Librarian for Public Services at the Frick Art Reference Library. Welcome to our webinar today on open access image resources. So Eugenie, would you just like to introduce yourself to our attendees before we get started?
Of course. Hi, everyone. As Michelle said, my name is Eugenie Fortier. I'm the Reference Associate for Public Services at the Frick Art Reference Library. I'm happy to be here and thank you all for joining us.
So the introduction will cover the goals that we set out to accomplish during the webinar, and we'll briefly go over what it means to be open access. From there, we'll explore open access image resources and discuss resource capabilities and e-learning tools and introduce subject-specific image resources for particular time periods within art history. And then we'll also close with a Q&A session. So this is, let's see, we'll jump right into the goals. So the goals that we have for today's webinar is that we want to demonstrate familiarity with open access image resources. We want to be able to identify subject-specific image resources. And we also want to gain an understanding of incorporating images into e-learning. It's important to mention that we won't be discussing copyright in this webinar, only how to identify whether or not something is open access. But for the e-learning portion, we're going to highlight specific educational tools on these virtual open access platforms that will allow faculty to use digital cultural heritage materials with their students. So what does it mean when something is open access, and how can we access and use these resources? I really like this UNESCO quote when it says that open access, or OA, means free access to information and unrestricted use of electronic resources for everyone. Any kind of digital content can be open access, from text and data to software, audio, video, and multimedia. So open access essentially means that materials are not restricted by paywalls or legal barriers, and that users can access them from anywhere and at any time. It's important to note, however, that open access is not the same as public domain, as most open access creators do still retain their copyrights. A lot of people often rely on Google Images, especially to find materials, but the main issue with Google Images and other similar search engines for an end like that is that they don't necessarily share content that's usable. So due diligence is very necessary here. Remember that not all open access images are licensed the same way. So we always need to double check the usage rights for any image that you plan on using for your project, regardless of the nature of your use. Today, we're going to look at several platforms that I use and rely on in my work that also allows users to find images related to their needs. So in terms of advantages of open access resources, mostly they increase visibility of art collections, and they're accessible to anyone at any time, as we mentioned earlier. They don't include access costs. Many of these platforms also provide the ability to collect and curate digital output based on your objectives, which also means that they help facilitate the development and sharing of educational materials as well. So they're really great resources for remote learning, but even just remote working in general if you're an art professional. So the open access images resources that we'll be looking at today are the Frick Collection website, as well as briefly we'll touch on the new ARIES platform. Also Europeana, ArtStor Public Collections, Wikimedia Commons, and Smithsonian Open Access as well. So let's first start with the Frick Collection, as I said before. So we'll just start with our museum website. So this is the art section of the Frick website, where one can search by artist, artwork, or technique, depending on your objectives. Just as a little bit of a background, the Frick Collection was assembled by the industrialist Henry Clay Frick, and it's an exemplary resource for images of its distinguished old master paintings, as well as examples of European sculpture and decorative art. So we can see here that the page is organized by type of artwork, but it also provides high-resolution images through these categories for works of art in the museum's collection, and also provides provenance and reference information, as well as supplementary materials related to objects such as audio or even display status. So to show you what I mean, we can just click on paintings here. And before we select the particular image, I just want to bring your attention to these three controls that are located just under this advanced search. So you'll see there's an eye, a folder, and another icon right here that will be more for refining results. But if we click on the eye, this just will provide some information on the type of artwork in this section and its connection to the Frick. So that might be useful to you. But also the folder icon will allow you to access public collections curated by theme or topic. So we can just go ahead and click on that so you can see what I mean. So you can see these public collections are those using the images from objects on the Frick website. And you can see they're compiled by theme, as I said before. So you have depictions of women. You also have depictions of animals, fabric, children, hats and portraiture, landscapes, still lifes, etc., even architectural related items as well. You can click on these here and you can kind of see how disparate images kind of relate to one another based on these themes. You are able to create your own themes, or rather your own collections as well, using this public collections by creating private collections here. What you'll just need to do is to create a free account here, right next to this My Collections tab in the upper right-hand corner. But now let's kind of show what we can do with a particular image. So if we go back to this painting section, you can see object details. So let's just click on this first one on the left-hand side. You can see Adoration of the Magi by Lazzaro Bastiani. And on the right-hand side, you can see that there's object information of the artist and also the date, the medium, etc. Just object information in general, whether or not it's on view, as well as any sort of additional information. And then you can also zoom in and zoom out in very detailed view of the object itself. And then below that, you have these these two images on the bottom, as well as the audio that I mentioned earlier. That being said, you can also interact with the image using a framework called IIIF, which you can see there's an icon for IIIF just on the lower right-hand corner of the image itself. IIIF stands for International Image Interoperability Framework, which allows users to interact with an image via a program or viewer called Mirador. So now that we've selected that IIIF icon here, I just want to bring this to your attention because a lot of the institutions and platforms for cultural institutions and other cultural initiatives do use IIIF as a way of interacting with their collections. So through Mirador IIIF, users have a variety of options with which to work with an image. So in the left-hand corner here, there's a toggle for image manipulation menu, where you can sort of adjust the contrast, you can adjust saturation, and even toggle to grayscale or even invert colors. And then as well, as I said earlier, you can do a more detailed view as well. You're not able to download the image, but you can use the image URL if you want to share this with students or if you want to share this with colleagues, or if you just want to keep this for yourself for your own research, if you're an art professional as well. If you click the eye in the upper right-hand corner, you'll also see again we have the same object data as earlier. So this is one way to interact with the collections on the Frick website, the art section of the website. So it's very useful for that. But before we jump into another platform, I also want to just briefly, we won't describe this too in depth, but I do want to highlight the ARIES platform. So the ARIES is an incredibly useful platform developed by a joint partnership between the Frick Collection and colleagues at New York University. ARIES stands for Art Image Exploration Space, which is an interactive image manipulation system that enables the exploration and organization of fine digital art. So users can actually create a free account using this link at the top here. and use the interactive image system to compare images, explore feature matching functions, and also use dynamic overlays through computational imaging processing features. So it's incredibly useful for academics, educators, and art professionals. So as I said, you can create a free account at the top and begin using it. But then further down, you can see that there are a variety of video tutorials on how to use the platform as well. So I definitely encourage you to take a look into this if it's useful for your own work. So the next resource that I want to go over is Europeana, which many of you may already be familiar with as well. But it's a fantastic resource. I know they recently did a redo of the website, so we'll kind of see how we can interact with that a bit more. So Europeana is an online platform created by the European Union that contains digitized museum collections of probably more than 3,500 museums and libraries and archives across Europe. So it's an excellent resource to find diverse digital images for a range of objects, whether you're searching for photographs, paintings, or sculpture, or any other type of artwork as well. I want to bring your attention just again to this upper right-hand corner, this navigations tab, where you see there's collections, there's teacher resources, and then there's also an About Us listed here. So we'll just go ahead and click on the collections portion. So the collections feature allows you to browse the aggregated collections by theme, such as art, manuscripts, archaeology, migrations, we can see here, maps, and even photography as well. A little bit further down, you have topics, such as they're more focused on like women's history, Art Nouveau, food, and these the topics section will often include not just images but also blogs written by professionals, online exhibitions, galleries, etc. So are other sources that help more with contextualizing this sort of material culture. And then from there, we also have online exhibitions and galleries and blogs as well, as I mentioned before, on a variety of topics. So these are combined, these are really great tools to see how disparate collections relate to each other and also to provide further historical contextualization of these digital heritage materials. So if we go back to theme here, you can also use this search at the top. It's a keyword or term search. You're welcome to use that. But if you want to kind of just to see what you can do with a particular image and how to search, we can just click the art theme at the top. So as you can see, we have a little bit of a description here on the type of art collections that you'll see here. And then also below this thumbnail, you'll see a variety of filters that you can use. These are incredibly important and incredibly useful too. So we can actually limit the type of media. As I said, Europeana has a bunch of different types of media attached to it. So we can just select images for our purpose. And then this "Can I use this" feature is also really important because it it allows you to choose open access or access with sort of stipulations as well. So "Can I use this" means can I reshare, sort of remix, use these images in the search results. Yes comes with conditions is obviously for stipulations, and then maybe, of course, as it says, means as advertised, perhaps seeking permission as well. So we can go ahead and select yes because we want just open access materials completely. Providing country, this is good if you want to limit to institutions that are participating from a particular place. But then also if you go to more filters, you can sort of put even more stipulations in. So if we want English, for example, aggregators are just going to be the digital collections that you also want to explore, so you can feel free to leave those blank. Institution, let's select the British Library for this search. But then there are also these other really interesting filters, such as you can limit by type of color or type of palette, rather, to see what sort of images are just relating by color, what sort of objects relate by color. And then this is really useful if it's for a certain presentation or your need for the image itself. You can select the image rotation, portrait or landscape, the size, and then as well as the file format. So you can go ahead and just press search with these filters here, and we'll just choose the first one to see what we can do with particular images. So each digital object is labeled with a rights statement that describes how you can use the object. So we'll just go down a little bit further and you can see. So just below the image, you'll see that there's a share, which will allow you to share on social media. There's also a download option, which will allow you to download the image itself. And then there's also just this one licensing that says that this is obviously from the public domain. And then above, we can have object information on the piece that we just selected. So this is an image from a collection of state flowers. As you can see, this is from a book. And below that, it just provides some information on the digitization of this item and what it was used for as well. And then below that, you can also see that it's part of the British Library. So by clicking this, you link out to the British Library record for this work. And just a little bit lower, you can see, again, more information on the providing institution, the publisher, the type of object, and then further information that also links to the Creative Commons portion that just tells you a little bit about what it means to work with this image in an open access way. And then further down, there's more information about the timestamp, etc., as you're accessing the image itself. So if we click on the image, this isn't going to be like we saw for the AAAF viewer, but it is still a high resolution image that you can zoom into and see very detailed, sort of the hatching marks and the shading, etc. that's used. So it is still a great way to access an image in particular. As I said, so all the metadata is a little further down here, as I mentioned before. So when you click download, you're just downloading the image. So that's really important to note if you're expecting to download the metadata with the image itself. So that's one way of just how to work with an image or how to find and use an image or search for an image using Europeana. But if we go down a little bit, we'll just go back to the page we were at actually. And I just want to bring this to educators' point of view too in terms of e-learning. If we go to the upper right-hand corner, you should see that there's a page specifically designed for teachers. It's called Europeana Classroom. And this teacher section actually provides educational resources using the digital culture provided by Europeana and its partners. So the option of kind of scrolling through, we see highlights here that are based on collections themes that can really fit the role in your curriculum or your lesson plan. A little bit further down, we see things like learning scenarios, which are active learning activities, which allow you to choose relevant subjects. And even by grade level as well. And then participation in co-culture and Historiana resources, etc. So this is going to be more of how to engage with the community of Europeana using these resources. Because as a teacher, if you do compile active learning scenarios using any of these materials, you do have the option of creating blog posts or other sorts of multimedia that allow you to sort of share how you've used this material with your students. And then all the way at the bottom here, you'll see under training tools, you have webinars, you have guides, and also other sort of tutorials on interesting ways to use the digital culture on this webpage. So that's Europeana. I hope you find that one useful. It's a beautiful website. And now let's move on right to the Getty Open Content Program. So the Getty Open Content Program is an initiative of the Getty Research Institute, and it makes available digital images to which the Getty holds the rights to or that are in the public domain. There are currently about over 100,000 images, paintings, drawings, manuscripts, even decorative arts and architectural drawings as well. And all of these open access images can be found through the Getty Search Gateway, which is the website we're currently on. If you do want to access open content images, you'll just need to, you see the searches right here. If you just go a little bit further down to highlights of Getty resources, just select open content images, and that will actually take you to the search page where you can search using that as your filter. So you won't need to specify open content images past this point. And as you can see, there's a term search. Again, there's a keyword search. On the right-hand corner, you can see you can opt to only have records with images as well. And as we'll see, you'll have the rights information for a particular image within the record of the image itself. So we'll see that as well. And then on the left-hand side, you can also see that you're able to filter your results in any way that meets your needs as well. So you have topics here where anything from religion to history and architecture, names that are actually associated with the works, places, and also sources here. And then the highlights, as we can see, were already in open content images, so that you'll just want to leave alone. But let's just do an example search of what we can find in an image record. So if we go, we'll just search for Manet. And you'll see, so there are about 9 open content image records altogether. This first one looks like it's just a photograph of Manet, so we'll just go ahead and choose this second result. So this is the letter decorated with a snail on a leaf. So as you can see, so this, you can zoom in a lot just from this feature here. They do also have the IIIF, which I'll show you in just a second. But under that, you'll see that if you want to manipulate the image this way, you're able to do that as well. Below that, you'll see that there is a statement here that it is part of the Getty Open Content Program. So while using the Getty search portal, you'll just want to look out for that when looking at images. And then on the left-hand side, just a little bit, you'll see that there's a download feature. The download feature is interesting because you can actually download the image according to the size that will fit your needs or suit your purposes. But what's interesting about it is if you click on the type of download that you're interested in, they'll provide you with the caption information that they've like credited with the image itself, and then they also are asking for some just providing information. So let's say we're just a private individual, and let's say we're just interested in it for personal research. So we can just submit that, and that will actually bring an image object, or an image of an object rather, for you that's set according to your needs. And we'll just return to the record here. So that way it provides information to the Getty on how you plan on using the image and the ways that you also are going to use the image for study or work. But at the same time, it also allows them to provide you with the resolution that's going to best fit your needs as well. A little bit lower than that, you'll see again, we have the object details that are available, classifications, medium, etc. And then below that, you'll also see that there are there's further information, historical contextualization on the work itself. And then below that, we also have even further. We have provenance, we have exhibitions, that includes the work, and even bibliography as well. And on the lower right-hand side of the image itself, we can just click on the IIIF. As I said, a lot of institutions use this. And you'll see that again, these are other ways you can engage. So if we go back to the left-hand side, you see this toggle manipulation. You can use it much the same way as you saw on the Frick website. And then they also have an annotation feature that's available to you. So if you are presenting for work, or if you're using this to engage with students, you can also use these annotation features in order to work with the image even further. So that's a great aspect to it. So the Getty is a really great resource. So next, let's jump right into ArtStor public collections. So ArtStor, many of you may also be familiar with. ArtStor is an image resource platform that provides art professionals, faculty, and students with art images in a wide array of subjects. So altogether, ArtStor has about 2.5 million images, and the collections are largely interdisciplinary, which is great. Everything from anthropology to art history and modern history as well. The images come with high quality metadata that are aggregated from the institutions to which the images belong. The important thing about the public collections, though, is that normally in order to engage with ArtStor, you need an institutional or campus affiliate account in order to access ArtStor content. But the great thing about ArtStor public collections is that you can search openly for free without an account. And the public collections themselves allow you to download an image and share it, which we'll see as well. But first, I just want to point you to this navigation bar at the top here. You'll see that there's this browse section where you can actually see the collections that are affiliated with ArtStor public collections. So you can actually see these institutions that are contributing their digital images and their metadata as well. And that's everything from universities to cultural heritage institutions. And then you also have a search, as I said before, you have this keyword term search that we've seen on other resources, but there's also an advanced search feature here that might also be useful to you. So you can do a word or a name search here, and you can designate by fields as you've seen on other websites. And then on the right-hand side, you can also use any sort of classification. For now, we're just going to limit to public collections type. You do have the options of even adding a country or geography. Either that has to do with the work or the artist itself, but for right now, we'll just leave it for public collections. And this isn't, as I said before, just for art history or for artists, but I'm going to use an artist here to search for in particular. So let's just say we're interested in finding materials related to contemporary Cuban artist Sandra Ramos. And we'll do a search here. You can also add the date, but for somebody contemporary like this, we're just going to leave that as is. So this is the search page altogether, or the search results rather. On the left-hand side, you can choose the collection type and also the classification type as well, whether you want just photographs or prints in this case, and you can also limit by contributor as well. So if we just went ahead and clicked this second result, for example, it gives you a little bit more information on the work and the artist, as well as what repository it belongs to and what online collection on ArtStor it's associated with. So we have the creator here, the title, all of the data that's associated with the object itself, and then it also provides information on the repository that holds it, as well as the digital collection that it's associated with. So this is also associated with the Lehigh University Art Gallery's permanent collection. A little bit further down, I just want to point you here because this is also where you'll find rights information, that because this ArtStor public collection is an aggregate, you will need to just keep in mind the rights that are associated with the institution that actually houses the work. So just keep that in mind. And then a little bit further down, you have more licensing information as well. But in the top here, so you have these options that are available to you in the upper right-hand corner. So you can choose to download the object, either a detailed view or download the item itself. You can cite the item here, which will produce different citations depending on the citation format. So Chicago, MLA, and APA, for example. And then you can also print preview and also use this link in order to share the image itself. The only thing is you do have this add to group option here, but the reason why it's highlighted the way that it is because in order to add it to a group or to create your own collections, you do need to have either an individual or a campus or professional affiliated account with this. So this is actually, the ability to add it to a group is actually not a free feature. That actually requires a paid account to do that. But that's just one way of actually finding and using images on ArtStor public collections. But it's a great resource. There are a lot of contributing institutions, as I said, for a lot of different subjects. So definitely, if you have the need, I would definitely start there as well. And if we just go back to home, I want to also highlight the teaching features that are associated with it. So Teach with ArtStor, this is actually, if you go down to the Explore ArtStor, as I said, I'm not sure, I might have done that a bit fast. You can just select the Teach with ArtStor link, and that's going to give you send you to a page that has educational resources here. So it provides teaching materials for dozens of disciplines, as I mentioned before. It also includes LibGuides and curriculum guides, as well as webinars and a subject guides in about 22 areas, as it says here. Also collection highlights, and it also includes search strategies for users. So as an educator, this is also really useful for you. If you're a professional and you just want to learn how to work with the resource, these are useful, but as an educator, this is also really useful when extending this to your students and helping them to sort of use this for their own research. So that's ArtStor public collections altogether. The next one that I just want to go over as well is the Smithsonian Open Access. Smithsonian Open Access platform. So as you can tell, this is an initiative of the Smithsonian Institute, which allows users to download, share, and reuse about 2.8 million of the Smithsonian's images. So all of the images and data come from the Smithsonian's 19 museums, research centers, and even the National Zoo as well. So you can see that there's a lot of information here. If you go down a little bit further, we see that there's a keyword or term search that you can feel free to use. I'll direct you to that in just 1 minute. And then below that, we also have an FAQ that's very accessible. It's a very easy to use platform. You also have these sort of featured platform tools that are also really useful. So we have developer tools here if you want to sort of understand their codes on their website, such as APIs, etc. A 3D Voyager to interact with 3D content. And then also you have the Smithsonian Learning Lab here, which is specifically for students and educators, but also professionals can use this as well. And also we have this Fig Share here that allows you to discover research data sets, as it says. So above here, I know today they were having a little bit of trouble in terms of stallings, but we'll see if we can get it to work this time. If not, we can use the Learning Lab to do so. So for now, let's just start with this page. Specifically, let's say that we're interested in the American still life artist Charles Porter. So it looks like this might be still taking a little bit longer. So we can just cut right into the Smithsonian Learning Lab, which also includes a search feature that we can see and use in much the same way. So the Smithsonian Learning Lab, you can jump right into by doing learninglab.si.edu. That's what I just did, but you can also access it through other pages as well. So Smithsonian Learning Lab altogether is one of the Smithsonian's featured platforms, as I said before, that allows you to create your own interactive learning experiences using the open access collections in all the Smithsonian museums. So just note that if you want to create a Learning Lab account, in order to save collections onto the platform, you're able to do so. The only stipulation is that you'll just need an email. But on the left-hand side, you can see that there are options to discover collections, to create, share, and learn as well. And then, as I said, a little bit below that, you see that you're able to create a free account. So we'll do this all in one shot. If we want to jump straight down to discover, just a little bit further, you'll see that this will take us to a similar search or the same search, where you have the option of actually searching resources, which are going to be single digital images. We can highlight images once we refine our search results, but we can also see what collections a lot of these results have been used into, these digital images have been used in. So again, we'll just type in Charles Porter. And see what comes up as well. Here we go. We'll just skip that for now. So this is similar to the keyword or term search that we would have accessed through the other page as well. It might be down for the time being, so you might want to check back. But in the meantime, we can just work straight from the learning portal, which is great. So for the learning portal in particular, or rather for both search terms, or both searches, what you can do is you can search specifically by resource, which will allow you to access, as I said, these individual images. But then on this right-hand side here, right below refined search, you'll also see that Learning Lab collections are included. So these are collections that are created by educators or other professionals that are working with these materials, that are sort of making connections by creating these collections of disparate images as well, based on certain themes or project-based learning. So that's important to note. But if we go back to resources, we can see how someone can work with an image specifically as a single image rather than through a collection. And as I said, you'll just, if you did want to create your own collection, you don't need a sign-in in order to access the collections themselves, but in order to create your own, you will just need to create an account. But in the meantime, just as a researcher, if we just want to access perhaps this third result here, which is mountain laurel. So this is an image that was, or a painting by Charles Porter. So as you can see, on the left-hand side, there are a bunch of options that you have for you. You have the option to print. You also have the option to cite the resource. As we saw, similar to the ArtStor public collections, you can zoom into the resource as well. And also you can download the data here. The one thing I will say about this, which is why the Smithsonian is also a great resource, is that you, as you can see, you don't just have the option of downloading the image itself, whether that's in TIFF format or JPEG, but you can also, in addition to having downloaded an image in a variety of formats, you can also just download the resource and image metadata as well, which is very up to date for the particular image. So that's just one thing. And then right next to that, you should see that there is there's a little bit of a Creative Commons symbol here, which just lets us know that this image is in the public domain, which is because we're on the Smithsonian Open Access website. And then in addition to this, on the left-hand corner, again, you see that there are other features that you can use. And then directly below that, if you just click Open Info, you can also see that this is the metadata that's associated with the image that we're actually looking at. So this includes the notes and any other sort of physical descriptions and identifiers as well. So that's Smithsonian Learning Lab and also Smithsonian Open Access resource. There's so many materials there. So if you do have, it's kind of like a sandbox in a lot of ways. So if you do have the time, I definitely suggest taking a look at this website because it's a great one as well. And then before we jump into the open access subject-specific resources, I want to share also Wikimedia Commons with you. You may have also used this in your own work or academic projects as well. So I'll just go through this a little bit more quickly. But the Wikimedia Commons is a media file repository for the Wikimedia Foundation, and it stores open access materials that can be used for its reference projects. So altogether, it makes available public domain and freely licensed educational media content to everyone in several languages. So if you look on this left-hand side, you'll see that there are, this menu provides, you can select languages, you can also select further tools and other sort of Wikimedia link outs. The Wikimedia Commons allows everyone to copy, use, and modify any files found here, as long as they follow the terms specified by the author and the source credit information. So this is going to vary depending on the item because users can actually create accounts and then start uploading files to it and data as well. So that's just something to keep in mind. If you want to upload files, as I mentioned before, you can just go ahead and create a free account. If we just scroll down to the bottom, and you can see there's a participating section here. But in the upper right-hand corner, we can just do a preliminary search just to see the kind of information you can find in an image record. So let's just do Monet. Just a quick search for Monet, and we'll just choose this, this first one, which is more of a general entry. And you can see that there are points of access. There are these different contents here that you can select from, portraits, cathedrals, seascapes, etc. So you can just scroll down a little bit further and kind of go through these at your leisure, depending on your needs for a particular artist, or you can just simply search for a work itself just to see what comes up. But for now, since we're in the Monet entry, let's click on this first one, which is a photo of red boats. And on the right-hand side here, you can see that this is, again, the public domain symbol, and then further information here, including the file name. But if we click more details, you can see here that this is where you'll find licensing information, as well as just also how to use this file. As we can see, the options up at the top and how it can be used in other Wikimedia entries, and also information about reusing that's going to be specific to this image itself. So this is very useful, and you can also feel free to open it in a media viewer to see it more extensively. A little below that, you'll see that this is object information for the object that's actually within the image itself. Again, so this is painting by Monet. You see that this is the object type, that it is a painting, oil on canvas, and also the collection that houses it. So this is just more information on the usage of this image itself and what it's an image of. So it's very useful. Again, Wikimedia Commons is also very similar. It's like a sandbox that you can add things to, but also use for different needs. So again, these are just a few of the ones that me and my colleagues have used in our work, but there are many others out there, such as Artcyclopedia, which is also a very helpful survey, third-party website that includes a lot of diverse images. So just keep that in mind when going through them. But let's move on just to subject-specific resources. So we're not going to demo these since we want to have enough room for questions, but I want to point out that these can be effective tools for those interested in digital images that relate to specific subject areas and also themes within art history. So we're going to go through resources related to American art, medieval to modern surveys. There are a lot of survey courses, or even in art professional work as well, the history of architecture, and also non-Western art. So to do that, we're going to briefly introduce Frick Digital Collections, the Web Gallery of Art, Ryerson and Burnham archives. That's actually at the Art Institute of Chicago, and also the Walters Art Museum. So we can get started first. So this is Frick Digital Collections. We can just jump right into that. So Frick Digital Collections is an online portal that includes photo archive images, also documentations, book materials, Frick collection images, and also archival documents. So this is the website, and we can just click enter in order to access the search. And you can see here on the left-hand side, you're able to choose a creator if you have a particular artist in mind, if you have a title of a work, date, any sort of identifying information. For our purposes, since we're interested in images specifically of particular artworks, we're going to just select the photo archive, which is up at this top, this blue navigation band here. So the photo archive is a study collection of more than 1 million photographic reproductions of works of art in the Western tradition. So my colleagues have used this for educational initiatives for many tasks, but it also stands out for its digital collections related to American art, especially portraiture of the colonial period through the 19th century. So we can sort of dive into that just a little bit. On the left-hand side, you'll see that there's a national school option. If we just choose American, this will just only highlight American images. And then if you go down just a little bit further under Frick subject classifications, we can choose portraits. So as you can see, just for American portraits, there are 27,932 entries. So it's definitely big, and it's also portraiture, and these different types of classifications are also always growing. So that's interesting as well. So if we just choose one, we can see that there's an image here that you can kind of zoom into, and you can see it's extremely high quality, but you can also dive into the metadata as well. So information on the national school that it's associated with, the creator, the title, and also the collection that it's associated with. And as I said, those subjects and classification information as well, in addition to the call number. So this is just one of the ways you can work with the Frick Digital Collections. We have had webinars on this as well, so definitely keep checking the programs page for any future sort of events that surround Frick Digital Collections, because it's a really exciting tool. Next, let's jump right into the Web Gallery of Art quickly. So the Web Gallery of Art is a third-party website, which means that any rights related to images will be found with the institution that actually holds the work. So we'll just enter enter it here so that you can kind of see a little bit about it. So it's actually a searchable database of European fine art images. In particular, this is a great survey resource if you're interested in images from the medieval period to the modern period. And it includes a wealth of information, not just images, but also artist biography information, tours on specific types of artwork and landscapes, glossary of terms. So this is good for students, but it's also maybe good for professionals as well. So these are just different ways to interact with it. And you can search artists by time period, by school, as you can see here, and also an alphabetical names list. But this is a great website, as I said, if you're interested in doing more medieval to modern surveys. Next, let's just touch briefly on the Ryerson and Burnham archives for architecture. This is, as I mentioned, at the Art Institute of Chicago. So the Ryerson and Burnham archives show the development of art and architecture in Chicago. On the left-hand side here, we'll just click on Images and Media. And then we'll just again click on through and to go to Images and Media. So as I said, they show the development of art and architecture in Chicago and the Midwest from the 1870s to the present through artists and architecture papers. Its collections include the development of the skyscraper, regional iterations of postmodernism and vernacular styles, and the history of Chicago urban planning. So it's a really great resource. In particular for Chicago, but also for architecture in general. And the archives also include a wide range of media, such as photographs, but there's also business papers and correspondences and other writings, as well as scrapbooks and general ephemera as well. So users have the option of choosing from one of these high-resolution images for download, and then you can also see further identifying information. If we click on one, you can see further subject headings. It's extremely clear, the images that are on this website, and very useful. So that's the Ryerson and Burnham archives. And then the very last one we'll do is going to focus more on non-Western art. So this is the Walters Museum. So for non-Western art, as I mentioned before, this museum collection catalog for the Walters Art Museum includes cultural heritage from everything from the Roman Empire, Ethiopia, the Islamic world, Near East, ancient America, China and Japan and Korea as well. And even there's also American collections and ancient Greece, as you can see here. But there are different ways to browse the website, all kind of depending on your needs and what you're comfortable with. So you can view by tags, but you can also view by categories listed here. And you can see you can choose ancient Egypt and Nubia. You can also choose ancient Near East, or even Baroque Europe as well. But this is especially good for non-Western, as I said before. So you also have India, Nepal, and Tibet. So you can click on that and sort of observe high-resolution images towards particular places and periods, geography. And then once you click on an image resource, as I've done here, you can see that there are tags listed for the resources we've seen on other websites, but then you also see, again, exhibitions provenance information, a credit line, and then you also have the option of adding it to a collection, again, if you want to create a free account, but also you can download the image, and that you can observe that this is also part of the Creative Commons licenses. So those were the subject-specific resources that you can use. Again, these are just a few of the ones that are available to you. These are the ones that we've used in our own work day to day, but there are a lot out there, so I definitely encourage you just to go out and sort of see what sort of collection, whether it's at an institution or whether it's more an aggregatory institutional or rather informational platform that includes aggregated images and cultural history, digital cultural images as well. For those of you who have any questions about Creative Commons and open access and sort of what that means in terms of right statements or how to use objects, I've just compiled a few resources here that I found to be very useful under additional resources that you can go ahead and access at your leisure. As we said, we are going to be sending out this slide deck, so if you don't copy these down now, we'll be sure to send these out to you. And that's all for me. I think we can move right on to questions. Thank you all so much for being here today.
Thanks, Michelle. That was great. We only have one question so far. Are there sites available to search for medieval cathedral architecture?
Medieval cathedral architecture. That's a really good question. I would definitely recommend starting with the web gallery of art, as we kind of went over earlier. Definitely click through that. I do believe they do have specific to cathedrals, but there are also some European resources that are also available online. Europeana might be a really good resource for that, as we saw. So I would definitely start there. But if you have any further questions, you can just feel free to send me an email at McCarthy-Behler@frick.org, or you can email the library at library@frick.org as well.
Thank you. One of our staff attendees is also saying, suggesting Columbia University and Gothic France as websites that could be of use.
Yes, those are also perfect resources as well. Thank you for that.
All right. The next question is there a distinction between open access and open content?
That's a good question. I don't believe that there is actually, but what I would suggest is actually going through these additional resources that I've linked here and kind of exploring that a little bit more. The jargon can sort of depend on the geography you are. So for instance, United States has different copyright and open access rules or considerations or stipulations versus those that are acceptable in Europe, for example. So just doing some research on that is what I would say the best advice would be. But you can definitely start off with these additional resources just as a jumping off point.
Okay, thank you. How reliable is Wikimedia as one can upload images such as a forger?
That's a really great point. I know that there has been, of course, this is supported by a lot of volunteers. That being said, Wikipedia and Wikimedia, and I think Wikimedia Commons in general, has really come a long way in terms of identifying false information and also verifying information as well. So I would say that it really is up to your discernment. But in addition to that, also keep in mind that Wikimedia and Wikimedia Commons, they are constantly on the lookout for things like that, on the lookout to verify. But again, this is also dependent on volunteers. So just being able to discern that, I would say. When looking and using images as well. One of the things, as you can see when we were on the website, you can sort of link out to the actual, if you're looking at, for instance, at a certain artwork, if you open it in Wikimedia, you can see that it is information on the digital image of the artwork itself. But a little bit further down into the website, you should be able to see usually what institution actually holds that artwork. So you could even reach out to them about certain things to sort of verify whether or not it's a true image as well, or just go to that website in order to verify. So there are a lot of ways to kind of research about that. Thank you for the question.
Well, thank you. We have another question about whether you know of a resource, or anyone in the audience knows of a resource for keeping track of open access collections in the US and internationally, preferably ones that are updated since collections open up.
Oh, that's an interesting one. Sorry, can you just repeat that first part? I cut out just a little bit.
Sure, one moment. Does anyone know of a resource for keeping track of open access collections in the US and internationally?
Keeping track of open access collections. I would say a lot of museum collection catalogs are open access and are Creative Commons. Creative Commons has an array of different licenses. There's not just one. So usually museum catalogs are a good way to start with that. That being said, I can't think of one sort of single search that will allow you to do that, but I'll definitely keep that in mind and kind of take a look. If you, as I mentioned before, you can feel free to send us an email. This can be something that we work on together.
Thank you. Do you have any recommended open access image resources for African art?
That's a really good one. African art specifically. The Metropolitan Museum of Art, you can use that website as well. There are certain collections also in France that also have African art, in particular, the Musée de Quai Branly, for example. So you can start with collection catalogs like that. But there are a lot of institutions actually within Africa as well, libraries and museums that have a lot of information. So that could be something. I don't have the website specifically on me, but that would be a great resource to look at as well. So I can actually, if you want to email me, I can actually send that to you and hopefully get that started. That's a really great question.
Thanks, Michelle. We have another question. Are you aware of any non-Western institutions creating these resources or non-Western aggregators? The person who posed the question is familiar with the Palace Museum in Taipei's Open Content project, but curious if you know of others.
I don't personally. I believe there's the Shanghai Museum. That might also be one place to look for that. But that's a really good question. I'm not sure myself.
Okay. If I plan to use an image for online learning, what should be the quality I download without using bandwidth without creating bandwidth problems for my users?
That's a really good question. I think it mostly depends on the open access or open access website that you're downloading images from. As you can see, some of them will offer various options depending on your need. So in some cases, as we saw, if you're using it for a presentation, maybe if you're developing PowerPoint that you want to send out to your students, or if you're doing something more of a publication scale, I would download it through that. Normally, TIFFs can be very large, but maybe if you want to download it in more of a JPEG, according to the size of your need, then I would say that's what my answer would be altogether. Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you. I think the last question is if you can add these resources to the slide deck when you send out PowerPoint to the attendees.
Oh, sure, absolutely. Yeah, I'll make a note of that, and I'll make sure to add that to the additional resources if anybody would also find that useful.
Excellent. I believe that's the last one for now. We can pause for a minute to see if any last minute questions come in.
That sounds great. Thank you so much. And thank you all for coming today. I hope this was helpful. And as I said, this is kind of just the tip of the iceberg here. This is only, an hour with just a few different resources, but there's a lot of material on the web. So definitely, I encourage you to jump into it, research it, and see what's available to you based on your needs.
Thank you so much, Michelle. We have a lot of thank yous coming in, but no further questions.
Perfect. Thank you all so much for being with us today, and have a great weekend. Take care.